For 6 years, Montclair artist Peter Jacobs has started every day by taking out his newspaper, cutting it up, and arranging the pieces into a daily collage. He calls this the Collage Journal and posts the results online. I sat down with him last week to learn about the process. So tell me a little bit about the collage project, when you started it and why.
Well, this started in March of 2005, and it basically was kind of a dare. Elizabeth said, maybe we should try to do something every day. My wife, proposed this concept, and I'd been doing collage for 20 years anyway. It was my vernacular, it was my vocabulary, second language, and I decided that the news was kind of reaching a kind of a world crisis of sorts, politically, environmentally at the time. And I became involved in a kind of a commentary at first with the Collage Journal. The work, if you look back, 5-6 years ago, was more about kind of a social commentary of what the politics were, where we were headed in wars, and just the basic collapse of many of our institutions. And so I went on through the next couple of years to do that. Then over the last probably 3 years, they became more pictorial. They were more painterly, more about form, detached from the politics. They still appear, the politics still appear in there, but I'm trying not to be very heavy-handed with that. If anything, it's an ironic kind of a subterfuge of the imagery.
You may be the last living American to subscribe to a paper newspaper.
I might be, and I was just asked to join a blog called 365 Days of Print, and their whole concept is that this is an endangered species that is certainly going to see only a couple more years possibly, if that.
Do you read the New York Times online as well?
No.
No.
No. In fact, the only time I look at the New York Times online is when there's a blizzard, and there happened twice this year where I couldn't actually have the paper physically to cut, so I went online and extracted images from the paper online those 2 days, and I found it harder to navigate. I like, newspapers to me are relational. When you want to look at something, you can also look at a couple things at the same time. There's a simultaneous perception that you get, and it's relational to that. And I find that a better way to understand the news and to understand the world.
Do you read the stories, or do you let your wife read the stories before you actually cut them?
She usually gets up about half an hour before me, at least, to get the newspaper before I rip it apart. Yeah. And it's a common problem. And she doesn't like reading it online either, even though if we have a subscription, we certainly both could read it online.
Right. So can you show me this morning's and what you did?
Sure. Yeah, this is the today's collage.
Do you look at the newspaper the way some of us might go to a food market and go, ooh, they have grapes on sale today? Do you pick up the paper?
Well, I find that there's an austere quality on the Monday and Saturday news. It's much more limited in how we can kind of extract, from how I can extract the imagery. The color is much less. In fact, the color has diminished a lot more throughout the last couple of years as well. I think the Times might have cut back. And I do use the Times 98% of the time. If I'm traveling, I'll use local newspapers because I think it's kind of fun to build on something fresh, and that's part of that locale. But the New York Times is by far the most vivid in its coverage as well as its imagery.
Does the New York Times know about this, and have they ever sought to do a show?
There's a number of editors who own works from the Collage Journal. They're well aware of it. I've proposed maybe a show in their galleries there. I've had an anniversary show every year around the anniversary of when I started, which was actually, we just reached that March 31st. So now I'm in my 7th year. I've always had a show within that year's context, and I'm looking for like a museum show, from Washington or something of that nature.
That would be cool. Can you do a little bit of just showing me how you paste and glue?
I will go through the newspapers. I'll go through them a couple times, and I'll read along the way things that interest me as well. But I don't get too stuck up on the reading. I like to kind of keep my head clear and more visually astute. It's more about the process of building and layering and recording all the images I see in my head, and then I bring them together and kind of orchestrate that process. I cut out a lot of things, and then I have that whole palette ready. And with that, stack of imagery, or I usually don't use words, but I'll build from that, palette. Usually I get up maybe around 7. I'm done by 9 a.m.
Wow.
And then I post them they're up on the internet, on the blog on my website by 9:30 the latest.
Wow.
And I've been posting them every day for like 530 days.
That's an amazing discipline,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it's like brushing my teeth now.